Brown, I'm the Chief of Public Safety, Roosevelt Island. Very happy to be here. Very happy to bring information to Island residents. With me is my Deputy Anthony Amoroso. He's very passionate about training. Our formal background, we both were in the NYPD. We both were in the training unit for a number of years for the NYPD. And one of our passions is getting out information, making sure that people are prepared. With us, we have Mr. Ed Powell from NYCEM, very knowledgeable, and he was here the last time. But the story about NYCEM and how they work and how they operate, my first week here 5 years ago, the bridge got stuck up. And I'm here alone. I'm here probably a week, and the first person that I called was NYCEM to figure out how we're going to get the bridge down, how we're going to get a mechanic to the bridge, and they came up with the solution, the plan. Took a little bit of time, but that's what NYCEM does. They facilitate, operations. They get things moving. They get people working together, and that's what we'll talk about a little bit tonight. And then I also have Officer Baptiste from the 114 precinct. And what I mentioned this a minute ago, it's been in 114 15 years. And there's something to say about an officer who's been in the precinct 15 years. That means that they are dedicated to service in the community. They like a specific community. They bring you service, day in and day out. And that's what Officer Baptiste, and he's happy to be here. I'm glad for him to be here tonight. So what are we going to talk about tonight? Emergency preparedness. I'll talk for a few minutes, turn it over to Amoroso. Mr. Powell will talk about NYCEM's role. I'm sure that you guys are eager to hear what NYCEM has to say. Mr. Officer Baptiste may say a few things, but I can tell you what he's going to do right now. If there's an emergency, NYPD will be here. They will be here in force. He has a radio. He can call 30,000 people if need be. So they are going to be here. They're going to be here for an emergency. They will take care of business. I have to apologize. FDNY, they were supposed to be here. The chief had an emergency and he could not be here. The last time that we had a chief from NYPD, Chief Lamberto, he was excellent. And one thing I'll always remember about him, he was calm, cool, and professional. And he just said a number of times, if there's an emergency, FDNY will be on the scene. And I can guarantee you that NYPD, FDNY, that they work hand in hand with Roosevelt Island, and they're here to serve. So just talking about preparedness, when I think about this emergency preparedness and how we can facilitate this and how we can bring the information to the residents, the first thing that we have to think about is having a plan. That's the backbone of preparedness, having a plan. And what goes into having a plan is that sometimes the residents, they have to do some of the work. I'll mention my mentor here, Jack McManus, a few times. If you guys don't know, Jack McManus was the chief here on the Roosevelt Island. He passed away last April. But every time that I find myself in a pickle, I think about what would Jack do. And Jack was great for Roosevelt Island. He was very passionate, very, he loved the residents. He loved, coming to a meeting like this and just bringing information. So one of the things that Jack McManus would always talk about is that if we're going to talk about preparedness, that if we give the residents information on how they can prepare themselves before an event, that this would help out tremendously. And that's what we have to talk about. When you came in, we gave out flashlights. That's just a small sample of being prepared. But one of the things that when we talk about being prepared, we talk about a go bag. My wife, and I'll talk about a lot of people who mean a lot to me tonight. But one thing, my wife, I would say she's passionate about this. We have a go bag at our house right now. And it has everything that we probably would need in the case of emergency. We have flashlight, we have water, we have medication, we have you know, a lot of things that we would need in our go bag so that we can always be prepared. Now, one of the things with the go bag, like, you would have to change it, you know, look at it, reevaluate it every probably 6 months, just so that we can be on a steady plan with this preparedness. When I said when we have a plan, what would you do if there's an emergency? What kind of emergency would constitute that you need a plan? Well, it depends on where you live and where you work or where you're at. For us, we're on Roosevelt Island. We live in the northeast sector of the United States. What do we have here with all our emergencies? Well, we saw this a couple of weeks ago. We had a hurricane, remnants of a hurricane. We had a lot of flooding. In certain areas, it was worse than others. Some people, they woke up in the middle of the night and they had water everywhere. That is a problem in certain areas, and we'll talk about that. You know, what are the probability of flooding and what zone that we're in on Roosevelt Island. So, what other kind of emergencies can we have? This not only hurricane, because this is the hurricane season. We're going to roll into winter. We're going to roll into winter snow and winter storms. You know, how are we going to prepare for that? You know, what do you need? That usually doesn't drive you out of your house, but it could make you inside your house for a certain amount of time. So you have to think about this, being prepared for an emergency. One of the things that I always think about in New York City, we've had blackouts in New York City, where all the lights go out, all the elevators are out. You know, is that an emergency that's going to constitute, you changing your plan? What would happen if you have these things go on? So one of the things that we talk about in NYCEM, FEMA, they're very good at this. They have checklists for you. You can apply for a checklist. They'll just, you hang it up on your refrigerator, and hopefully you never need it. That's what we hope for. We hope that you never need it, but we have the plan just in case you do need it. Taking action, right? But after you have this plan, say that we have, this emergency situation, as we had, with the remnants of a hurricane here, you have to take action. Sometimes you may have to leave your apartment, depending on where you live. We're lucky on Roosevelt Island. If we have a lot of water and in this area, we most likely will shelter in place. Remember that, because I get this a lot of times. What's the evacuation plan? We do have to have a plan, right? But most likely, most likely, we shelter in place. But we have to plan just in case we have to leave. One of the things that I really like about Roosevelt Island is that we have red buses on the island, so we have a transportation system built in, just in case we have to get out of here in a hurry. But we also have to remember that most likely we will shelter in place. Most likely we will shelter in place. That always comes up. What's the evacuation plan? However, we do have a couple of evacuation locations. And just in case that there's an emergency, say that we do have to leave the island for some reason, that we do have to, go to another place, we have 3 evacuation centers for our area. Does anybody know them? I know you know them, Frank. Does anybody know what they evacuate? And so that's one of the things. You want to tell them, Frank?
I'll just turn around. So I'll just point to them. So one is over on 57th Street and 2nd Avenue, PS 59. That's right across from the tram. Another one is over here.
It's called Midtown East Campus. Midtown East Campus.
I'm sorry, you're right.
Yes.
Frank Sinatra High School over on 35th and 35th. That's easy to remember. And the Q66 goes over there. So if you take the subway one stop and the Q66 drops you right there. And then the other is over in that direction, Aviation High School over in Sunnyside, and that's right on 35th Street and Queens Boulevard. So those are 3 closest.
Yes, I'll tell you again. We have 3 evacuation centers for Roosevelt Island. One is Midtown East Campus, PS 59. One is Frank Sinatra High School, and one is Aviation High School. And the good thing about these areas, you would see in emergency situations, and we see this across the country, sometimes that you have to evacuate. Sometimes it's just a place where people can go because it is a temporary shelter. And this is what these locations provide for us. These are what yes? PS 59, Midtown East Campus, Frank Sinatra High School, and Aviation High School. Aviation High School. And you know what, I like to, and I knew Frank knew the answer to that, but a lot of people, they don't know, but these are places that they will set it up for Roosevelt Island residents. And in case of an emergency, in case that they tell people to evacuate, or just shelter, you know, temporary shelter, they will set this place up for Roosevelt Island residents, and so that we can all walk in there, and that we will be out of our house, but we will be in a place where close to home, that we can get back and forth, we get back to home when it's time to, but it is a place that will be dedicated for Roosevelt Island.
Chief?
Yes, sir.
Also, guys, those evacuation points are great places for you to reunite your family members in a catastrophe, you know, or an emergency situation. You know, if you know, discuss it as a family. Hey, this is the one we're going to go to. If you know, everyone gets separated, and that's where you can reunite with your family members in case this happens when someone's at work or someone is, you know, away from the house and you're not all able to travel together. This way you guys can be with your loved ones and not have to worry about, you know, where is Joe? Did he make it to one of the evacuation points? So it's something that you could discuss with your families and pick one specifically, have a point A, and then go have a point B. If you can't make it to point A, you're going to go to point B. This way you have some kind of strategy to reunite.
That's crucial, and that goes into having a plan. Talk to each other. Talk to your family members. You know, sometimes you might have like you know, you think about this. Where's that place that we went on our first date? Or where's that place where we went to the first restaurant? You know exactly where that place is, and if you talk to your family members, they'll know exactly where you're going to be. We see this if you look at what happened in New Orleans, where they have these, you know, these incidents more and more often than not. People get separated from their family. They don't see their family for days and days. But if you talk ahead of time that you know where you would like to go, then you get this, you know, you write down this information. Where would you like to be? Where would the best place to go? Would you go to Queens or would you go to Manhattan? Would you go over the tram or would you take the bus to a Queens location? Aviation High School and Frank Sinatra are both in Queens. PS 59 is in Manhattan. So we have to talk to each other, and that goes into having a plan. I talked a bit about the go bag. Some of the things that you would throw in your go bag. Water, you know, a gallon of water per person for drinking water. We talk about food. You know, I take a little bit of laughter when we talk about food. They talk about food for survival. They don't say pack up the bacon and eggs, and you know, they talk about, you know, bring in, you know, some healthy, you know, bars and, you know, and fruit. You know, they don't say, you know, pack up, you know, everything in the refrigerator. Pack up the stuff that you can use and that you can eat really, really quick and that you can store. Having a flashlight. You know, most of the time in an emergency, the first thing that goes is light. We gave out flashlights here. We contributed to your go bag. The first thing that goes is the light, and you know what is going to happen always happens, and we need to be able to see. And we have flashlights. First aid kit. One of the things that we talked about with us is that we have these first aid kits, and you kind of like take a Band-Aid out, you take this out, and then you don't replenish it. You have to always check your first aid kit. Make sure that it's replenished. Make sure that you have the things in there that you could possibly need. This sounds so like we're in third grade. Having a whistle. Sometimes, you know, throw a whistle in your bag so that other people can know where you are. Other people can find you. You know, sometimes in emergency situations, we're going through this now with the pandemic. You can't see each other. Sometimes you have these masks on. You don't know who is who. Have a whistle so that you can, blow the whistle so that you can detect or find somebody. Where in the pandemic, we have masks, right? But I was around during 9/11. I was a police officer during 9/11. We could have used some masks that day. There was dust up, dust for days. If we had a few masks, if we had that in our go bag, a lot of people who were just out there, they could have, breathed a little bit differently if we have masks. We need them now in the pandemic, but that day, 9/11, that was an emergency situation. We could have used, the people who were in that area. That was a time when you needed a go bag because you were going to relocate from your area. You weren't going to be able to stay there. Things were not stable. If you wanted to leave, you got into, take your bag, and you get out of there and you go to a different location. Having that in your go bag. We talk about, maps, right, when we have phones now. But I think about my kids too, with their phones. My kids keep their phones on 1% for some reason. I don't know why, but it's always on 1%. Every time you get to the car, they have to charge their phone. Keep your phone charged. Keep your charger by your phone, right? We have cell phones. That's very important. Keeping the charger, keeping your cell phone charged. You never know when there's going to be an emergency. You never know when you have to vacate a place and get moving. So you have to, plan ahead. So some of the other things that we consider are, and this is huge, and I was thinking about this before I came here, and this is a Roosevelt Island, not exclusive to Roosevelt Island, pets. What do you do with your pets? The last thing that you want to do is leave your pet. You have to have a plan for what are you going to do with your pet. Just like you have a go bag for you, you need a go bag for your pet. Your pet has to eat, your pet has to, get moving with you. What are you going to do? How are you going to do this? What does your pet need? Do you have a big pet or small pet? How are you going to transport this pet? Where are you going to go with this pet? Is it safe for the pet to go somewhere? The last thing that you want to do, and I saw this during 9/11, pets in apartments. When people get back to their apartment, the one thing that they wanted to get back there to find their pets. We have to think about them before we leave. Think about them now. Think about your pet. What are you going to do with them? So I'll turn this over to Amoroso.